Hello and welcome to another drive-in double feature podcast. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week normally, but we're talking about two Sylvester Stallone movies every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything at all, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. Just a little fun area. We're playing some games, doing some trivia, making fun of each other's movie taste, just having a good laugh between us friends as a gift to you patrons out there for supporting us. But don't worry if you choose not to, it doesn't affect any regular content. But I know we kind of ended on a cliffhanger. We're going to be starting with a cliffhanger, like how every show does. They start with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and then you get the answer
yeah,
immediately.
yeah. Um, but yes, today we are talking about 1993's Cliffhanger, directed by Renny Harlin. This is Stallone's very next movie from Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And this one is a very different movie. This is more truer to form Sylvester Stallone, like kind of like doing what he does as an action movie. And this one, I mean, I'm looking at his filmography here, and I like because we kind of made the comparison for a couple of his other movies, like Cobra was his answer to Dirty Harry, Tango and Cash
Mhm.
was his answer to Lethal Weapon, and I'm like, I think Cliffhanger is Sylvester Stallone's version of Die Hard.
Yeah, I mean he got the director of Die Hard too, so it's kind of it kind of works hand in hand.
Yeah, it's Die Hard on a Mountain. And like you said, this is directed by Renny Harlin, a very, I'll just say, infamous director, probably is the word.
Yeah, he's a weird one, right? Because like he, if you, I've only heard of him like as a joke, but you look at his filmography, he has some good movies. It's definitely like a hit or miss kind of director, I guess.
Yeah,
Well, I guess here recently he's more
I don't
making
know. I
more
mean,
bad
like,
movies.
yeah, I don't know if I would go with that complimentary towards his
You don't think
filmography. If he,
because like we got Dream Master, Die Hard 2. Oh yeah, Cutthroat Island.
Ford, The Adventures of Ford Failane,
Yeah, that's supposed to be bad.
Die Hard Two is like the worst of the original trilogy.
Yeah. Deep Blue Sea might be his last good movie. And
Yeah,
even then I'm putting good in quotations. I should say
well,
last fun movie.
yeah. So there's definitely some movies that he I was a Cutthroat Island is like one of the biggest box office bombs of all time. Like
Yes, yeah.
cost over almost $100 million to make, only made $10 million. Like colossal
That's
failure.
brutal.
so, but that's before he would get to that point. This
Yeah.
is he'd had successful hits with Die Hard 2, and so this is him like doing like his big follow up. But anyway, this is Sylvester Stallone doing his version of Die Hard, but it's on a mountain, and he plays a ranger, like a rock climbing, like forest ranger type of guy, or mountain ranger, I guess. And
Hmm.
the movie starts with him on a like rescuing these climbers and trying to get them to safety. And at one point, the woman does, which I thought the scene was actually shot pretty impressively.
No, I
I
totally
actually
agree.
I actually really like the opening scene because it's shot very dramatically, and just the camera angles that you see in this movie is pretty
Yeah.
spectacular. I'll say.
No, the cinematography in this movie is really strong, like the way it looks and the mountains and everything. And this first scene is really tense with Michael Rooker, who is in the rest of the movie, but you have he brought this girl up who can't even mountain climb, and they have to be rescued, and it's actually really tense. And it does a good job of like in the beginning it has really light music. It's really like, like, oh, I'm picking up Michael Rooker, this is my job, setting this up. But then it gets like really like intense really fast because her crap is breaking, which I'm sure that actually scared a lot of people from mountain climbing after watching this movie.
Um, I wanted to mention, I because I kind of had an epiphany watching that scene,
Hmm.
which was I've seen this movie before,
Oh, okay.
and very not too long ago actually, but a very very long time ago, I did see Ace Ventura 2 in theaters. Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you remember watching that movie, but they they redo this opening scene from Cliffhanger,
I don't remember that.
but it's him trying to save a raccoon, and he's got a raccoon on a little.
Oh, I kind of remember this. Yeah.
It's like down to like the cable, like the buckle snapping and everything, and like him trying to hold on to the raccoon's little claw, like Sylvester Stallone did. So
That
it's
sounds really funny, actually.
so it's I'm sure that movie, if you saw Cliffhanger, then you saw that, that would have been like hilarious. But
Yeah.
I just, when I was a kid, it's like, oh, he just really loves animals. He takes it super seriously. But then when I'm watching Cliffhanger, I'm like, oh wow, Ace Ventura just redid this whole scene.
Just parodied it. That's wild that this movie was that relevant to get like a big parody scene in the Ace Ventura sequel.
Yeah, because that was like 2 or 3 years afterwards, I believe. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but anyway, he goes after that happens. He kind of falls into a funk, and we he's like, I'm never gonna go climbing again, type of thing. And it just he has a girlfriend in this movie, played by what's he has a girlfriend played by Janine Turner.
Yeah. What was she in? I think she's on Northern Exposure.
Yeah, Northern Exposure. She
Yeah.
was in Friday Night Lights. Um,
Yeah, she's in stuff.
but the reason why I bring her up, uh, she got nominated for a Razzie for this movie,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, because I don't know about you, but I thought I mean, she was not good in this movie
No,
at all.
no. She was very forgettable. I was like, I thought she was just going to be a side character at the beginning of the movie. I was like, okay, I'm not going to have to worry about her, but she becomes like a full blown main character towards the end, and she has some really awful moments. But we'll get to one of them a little bit later that I just like absolutely hated.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say I actually had a pretty fun time with this movie.
Oh yeah, I would put this up there with like last week when we talked about like Tango and Cash and Cobra. I put it in that same. It's just kind of a fun movie. I have some minor issues with it, but I'd watch it again. I really would. I thought it was a good time.
I think this one, though, for me, like one of his hyper action ones, I think this one is superior to those other two, in my
You think
opinion.
so? Yeah.
Yeah, this one seems a lot more high concept. I think a lot of the stunts in this movie are actually really impressive. Just
Hmm.
so much in this movie, just like the acting and stuff. Yeah, I get it. It's not great, but
Hmm.
I think everything else, like some of all of its other parts, just like as far as the production side goes, it actually does it really well. And the Academy thought so too, because this movie was nominated for 3 Oscars.
Wow, we're talking about Oscar caliber movies. So special effects, I'm guessing.
Yep, special effects, special sound editing, or
Okay.
it's like when that was still a thing, and then best sound.
Makes sense. Yeah, I could see it. It's definitely like a technically like really well made movie. If the Academy had a stunt work thing, I think this definitely should have been nominated for that as well. Because the stunt work is also really good. There's a really cool scene early in the movie where and we'll kind of get into like the plot of like that where there's a plane with for the US Treasury has a bunch of money on it and people want to rob it, and there's a really big stunt where there's a zip line between one plane and another, and they have to zip line between both planes, and it's all real. There's no safety net, no nothing, and they couldn't get it insured. So Sylvester Stallone actually took a cut off of his paycheck in order for them to pay this guy $1 million to do this stunt one time. So that was only captured one time, and it's an impressive stunt for sure.
Yeah, Yeah, I mentioned it on an earlier episode that we've
Yeah.
done, and it's very impressive looking. I mean, the guy really does zip line from one
Yeah.
plane to the next, and it's just just for this one movie, they do like one of the most insane stunts in a movie where it's just and the guy, like you said, he got paid big time for that movie, which I don't blame him one bit. Like they should have paid that guy
Oh
more,
yeah.
more money. I don't know if I would even do that for
You don't
$1 million.
think so? I don't know. $1 million may make me think twice about it. I might be like, oh, maybe, but I'm definitely not qualified to do it. And that man was probably somewhat qualified to do that job.
Oh yeah, professional stunt guy. But I remember reading too about that stunt too, and I said it on one of the podcasts. It's
Mhm.
just that the movements of those planes had to be so precise because they couldn't be too far apart or the cable would have snapped,
Mhm.
and they couldn't be too close together, otherwise the rope would have too much slack and he would just fall.
Yeah.
And so it's just the precision involved in this one stunt is crazy, and just the fact that they were able to accomplish this thing is nuts.
Yeah, and it's like maybe what, 5-10 seconds in the movie.
I That's what I was kind of thinking of asking you that. It's just like, do you think it was worth it, like for that?
I don't know. I would have liked maybe a little more show to it. You know, like the action movie where you show the explosion 3 times in a row. Maybe some shots like that where we see it from multiple angles. I get why they couldn't. I don't know. I don't know if $1 million for 10 seconds of footage. I don't know if that's worth it, but it's pretty cool.
Like, I get it. It's a death-defying stunt. Like, there's so many variables that this guy
Yeah.
could have just died.
But your audience isn't going to know that, right? Like your normal person that went to the theater, they probably just think it's movie magic. They don't think it's
Well,
actually anything.
that's the problem. That's what I was gonna say. It's like, yeah, like on paper, yes, it's very impressive, but
Mhm.
technically, I don't think it looks super impressive.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think maybe I was more impressed because I knew the story behind it. But like,
It
if I didn't know going in, I'd probably forget about it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's amazing because I know it was real,
Yeah.
but
But is
if
it
I
real?
was well, if I'm sitting there in a theater and you don't obviously back in the '90s you couldn't watch behind the scenes before going to the movies or anything like
Mhm.
that. So if I'm sitting there in a theater, I would probably just be like, oh, like these two planes are stationary or something, and he's
Yeah.
just zip. I would have thought they did something, that wasn't as death defying. But the fact that they did that is the part that does make the stunt look good. But I'm just saying, without any context, is it worth it?
That's true. No, and I totally agree with that. Unless there was a big title card before it, like in the middle of the movie, it just said this what's happening now is real.
It's just flashing on the screen like, this is real. This is a real
Real.
stunt.
No safety net, nothing.
Yeah, because the
Um,
guy doesn't even have a harness on or anything when he goes down. He just
no.
zip lines.
Yeah, it's very, very dangerous.
Leading up to the scene, the big main event of this movie, for me at least, is John Lithgow as the main
Yeah.
bad guy of this movie. I Holy crap! Just, I mean, we've talked about it before, but this guy is just hamming it up, chewing
Oh,
all
oh
types of
yeah.
scenery.
He's chewing scenery. At one point, it looks like he's chewing a woman. Even has the fakest British accent too. I always talk about this, I think, with actors, and I always just like seeing an actor having fun. John Lithgow's having an absolute blast. He's having a great time.
Yeah, and there was actually a alternate universe where Christopher Walken was in this role.
Oh man, that would also be really good.
That would be so funny if he was in it too. But
Uh-huh.
he just has he I mean, John Lithgow for me steals the entire show. I mean, it's just, he's so
Yeah.
quotable. There's some, kill a few people, they call you a murderer. Kill a million, and you're a conqueror. Go figure.
No, yeah, exactly. He is just I don't know. He does it, especially from all the villains, because it is a movie filled with kind of bad acting. I won't even say I love Michael Rooker, but Michael Rooker isn't even that great in this movie, and it he at least is he's bringing something to the table.
It's not meant to play for laughs, but so
Oh yeah, no.
Michael Rooker was in love with that girl that died in the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
and he kind of blames Gabe, Sylvester Stallone,
Hmm.
for her dying because he's like, well, you shouldn't have gone out there and grabbed her. You put too much weight on the line. And there's a scene where Michael Rooker just is about to kill Sylvester Stallone, like
Yeah.
throw him off of a mountain. Sylvester Stallone's just like, go ahead, do it. Like, but just the intenseness of that scene, I just thought it was so funny. Just like they're,
Yeah, I
I'm like,
agree.
oh my god, this is like life or death now.
Yeah, what I really liked about this movie, or what took me by surprise, is about halfway through this movie. This movie's a little violent before. This movie becomes like a hyper violent
Yeah,
action movie. It is. I hadn't seen this much blood and gore, or I wasn't expecting this much blood and gore in this movie, but it is bloody.
I was getting so many laughs out of this movie that
Yeah,
because the because so I mean the whole point is this movie, its cliffhanger is that Sylvester Stallone's character is a climber. He
yeah,
has climbing equipment. He climbs mountains. He climbs rock faces. He's always got climbing equipment, and just the fact that that personality trait is hammered in so heavily. Like all the weapons he had are climbing equipment.
yeah, yeah. It's like they took Rambo and they were like, oh, what if instead of guns he had like this bolt gun that shoots bolts into rock and like rope. That's like that's his whole setup.
But he has that. He has a pickaxe,
Yeah.
and he's got rope and all that. I just the fact that they're like, oh yeah, he's not going to use regular weapons. He's going to use climbing equipment.
But you know what? I kind of like that. I think that's a fun twist. You don't really think about that. I think I was reading somewhere. I'd have to look into it. It's based off of a real guy, some like rock climber. I mean, this never happened, obviously, but it's based off of somebody.
The there's a very famous rock wall climber, and he actually does. I think he has a cameo, or he does like stunt work for this movie. And
Really? Okay.
yeah, so they do get a lot of famous rock climbers to do the stunts for this movie, and double
But
for a lot of the characters in this movie.
but I guess I watched like some rock climber talk about this movie, and I guess it's completely inaccurate, most of it, and it was really hard to watch because it just sounded like a cinema sins the whole time. Like I was getting hearing a ding for everything. Like I didn't even finish the video. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna enjoy this movie.
That's not how you use a bolt gun. Ding.
Yeah. More like a bolt gun doesn't even exist. You can't put bolts into rock with a gun like that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But it's a movie, so I'm willing to forgive it, and I'm not an avid
It,
enough rock. I'm not a rock climber, so I can deal with that.
exactly. I don't care about those things. It's a fun movie. That's what matters most.
But that's the whole thing. I mean, they're trying to get the money back, and from because during the plane, they dropped the suitcase full of money, and they're trying to recover what money is made in there, and they crash land, John Lithgow and his group of villains, and so they have to make a distress signal to get somebody to climb up the mountain to get all the money. And
Hmm.
Sylvester Stallone shows up, and Michael Rooker, so they hold them captive, and eventually Stallone's love interest shows up. Like I said, Janine Turner, and like you said, you think she's just going to be like the woman in the radio tower type of thing at
Yeah.
first, but then she's just like, "Oh, I'm coming along," and
He's literally like, oh, something really bad is going on. There's like bad guys trying to steal money. They are holding us hostage. And her first idea is like, oh, let's go out there and find the money. Let's try to save them. Not like, oh, I need to go back and call the cops or something.
right, and they're stranded in the wilderness too, and like the
Mhm.
snow and everything. And there's a scene where Sylvester Stallone just burns there's three suitcases of money. He burns a whole suitcase of money just to
Mhm.
stay warm at night.
Yeah, and
It
it's
costs a fortune to heat this place.
and then everyone claps and laughs in the
Yeah,
theater.
the whole theater just applauds.
uh,
Uh,
but there's like a real, and this is a little bit later, but it kind of is pointless. The scene that I think that she's like the worst in is there's the scene with bats where they're in like the wet like
oh God, yeah.
cave, and then like he's like, oh, don't get up, and then she instantly gets up, and she's supposed to be a in quotation strong character, but for whatever reason in this bat cave she just loses it and just screams, and they're running it. That scene
Well,
could have cut it out of the movie.
that was so she because she's a park ranger too,
Yeah,
and so you think she's got some survival skills in her, or
yeah.
she's being taught something, or she knows about the wildlife that live in that area, and they're in the bat cave, and Stallone's like, "Let's don't move." Like we're in a cave full of bats, and she
Hmm.
freaks out, and she yells, "Let's get out of here!" and starts sprinting in the bat cave, and
Yeah.
of course it freaks all the bats out. And
Yeah, and it's like when a woman comes around Sylvester Stallone, they become dumb and helpless. That's what it feels like.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know.
just that was a bad scene, but there's other funnier scenes where before that actually he does kill one of the bad guys, and they're falling down a hill, and then Sylvester Stallone jumps on the guy's back and just uses the guy as a human
Oh my
sled.
god, yeah, no, that was great. I because like he uses night vision goggles, and he blinds him with a flare, and when he rides him down the slope, he like rubs his face into the ground, and his blood gets all, or sorry, his face gets all bloody and scarred. That was like the first sign of like, oh my god, this is actually kind of a, a brutal movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like all the blood just running off, and
Yeah.
there's another guy, and I didn't realize, but there's an actor in this movie just called Leon.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, there's the guy named Leon. He's like extra. He's kind of crazy, and his fight scene is kind of nuts because he beats the crap out of Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, he beats Sylvester Stallone up pretty good. And but Sylvester Stallone gets some good shots in, and then the final killing one for him is that Sylvester Stallone picks him up and military presses him into a stalactite.
Yeah, and
And
just like it goes through his body, blood pouring out. It was insane. It was really cool. It was really cool. But I just think it's funny that the woman's with him, and she has to be scarred for life after seeing something like that.
well, yeah, and it's like you would think Sylvester Stallone's character would too. So I'm going back to Die Hard thinking, John McClane was just kind of like the part of the movie that works is that he wasn't this super cop. Is just he was just a regular cop. He was just put in
Yeah.
a really awful situation, and he had to kind of find that strength within him to do that. What he
Hmm.
did in that movie, and he was never like a killing machine like before. He was never known as a killing machine, and but this one, it's like he's a regular rock climber, like a ranger, and he knows how to murder all these people,
Yeah.
and like I just you wouldn't think like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to pick this guy up and I'm just going to impale him with a rock, and
Yeah. Normally, how that would go is you just beat him like really hard, or like take his gun and shoot him, even though he's out of bullets. But still, like that's not the first thought. Is I'm picking you up over your head and I'm going to stab you with a rock.
yeah, just the fact that this guy he now has a body count, and supposedly he's probably never killed somebody before the actions in this movie.
I don't know. It's
So now he
questionable now.
so now he's got like all these dead bodies, and he's totally unbothered by that fact.
Yeah. So I do want to say, if I had one complaint about this movie, I do think it's a little long. It is about an
Mm-hmm.
hour 50 minutes, and it's funny. Stop, or your mom will shoot, or my mom will shoot. That one felt longer, but still, Cliffhanger feels just a little too long. Like they could have cut out a little bit of it.
I agree, because there's some stuff where they deal with Michael Rooker's character, like him being held captive, and
Mhm.
I didn't really find Michael Rooker to be that compelling. I mean, he's funny in it because it's just Michael Rooker, like
Yeah.
trying to play this movie completely straight, but I didn't think his character was all that interesting. And it was because I mean the whole crux of the movie was you're kind of thinking that Michael Rooker's character was gonna want Sylvester Stallone dead, or he was gonna have to make a choice like, well, do I help Sylvester Stallone, or do I just let these bad guys kill him and let them do the dirty work for me? But that point never comes up. It's just they get captured, them, and then almost right away, Michael Rooker is starting to look out for Sylvester Stallone. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, just like that conflict out the window. Like it's not important anymore.
I got to protect this guy. Yeah, I did think that was a bit odd.
So there are some other funnier scenes in the movie too that I wanted to mention. So there's one fight scene between Michael Rooker and this British guy on their team, another British guy.
Yes, yeah.
And the guy decides that he's literally kicking Michael Rooker, and he starts doing soccer/football commentary.
Well, I noticed this. He says soccer, but he's British. A British person would never call it soccer.
No, never. But
Ding.
Ding. But yeah, that was just a funny scene where he just it's like he's gonna go for the shot, and
no, this movie is full of moments like that. It's one of those nice like action movies where like it's super cheesy. It's got these goofy moments, but it plays it so straight, and I always think that's like really fun.
Yeah, if you're gonna do that, like the movies that there's some where they do play into like the comedy bits of it that work, but
yeah,
seeing a movie like where it's like completely not trying to be funny in the slightest, but they're playing it completely straight just makes it like even more great. And
yeah,
like I don't know how you could watch John Lithgow in this movie and just be like, oh yeah, that's a completely serious, compelling role that he's doing.
What a convincing villain! Why wasn't he nominated for this one?
Well, he was nominated for a Razzie for this movie too.
I kind of get it. That accent is really bad, but I think it's. I don't think it's a big deal. It's a good time.
No, and I don't even think this is a bad movie, to be quite honest with you.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean, like I said, I had too much fun for it to be considered bad. I mean, I would watch this over a lot of his other movies any day of the week. And
what we covered on Tuesday, I'd watch this any day of the week over that.
Oh yeah, I'd watch this twice before I'd watch that again. But
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's a really fun movie. I mean, the climax too, where John Lithgow has some other really great parts in it, where John Lithgow is just so evil and so cunning, where it's just kills like his own. Like, so there's a scene where the field agent who betrayed the Treasury Department, who teamed up with John Lithgow, he's like, all right, I'm taking the money, like screw you, I'm out of here. And he's about to take John Lithgow's female teammate along on the crew because she knows how to fly the plane. And then John Lithgow ends up shooting her. And he's like, all right, well, I'm the only one that can fly this plane, so we're partners again.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the only one that could do this. I love it. I thought the way he killed people just with no remorse. Like he just was like the pure evil villain that you love to see. And he ends up like he just holds everybody hostage by the end because he does get in that helicopter, and he has the bad actress we've been talking about held hostage somehow. And Sylvester Stallone has to climb to the tallest peak in order to get her back.
Oh yeah, of course it's got to be on the tallest peak, and they do fight in the helicopter, which Sylvester Stallone's able to get out of, and it does plummet to the bottom of the cliff, and John Lithgow just explodes at the helicopter.
Yeah, I love it. Well, after he says, I think Sylvester Stallone says, keep your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times. And then,
Yeah, just like
you know,
had to force in a one-liner there. Just could not do that.
of course, of course. But yeah, that explosion. Do you know the backstory of what that explode? Yeah, it burnt down the whole set, which is wow. And that I say it's worth it. This,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one was worth it. That was worth it.
You know what's wild? This is like the first time we've talked about Sylvester Stallone movie, and it doesn't seem like it was a complete nightmare to make. He didn't take control. I don't know if there's any stories I missed out on, but
There is one. So
okay.
uh so Renny Harlin, at this point, Sylvester Stallone has a very infamous reputation for
Hmm.
movies, and Renny Harlin was saying that he wanted to test that with Stallone. And so at the last minute, I guess eventually, like, that opening scene was going to be a lot more. I was not going to be like a really tragic opening, which I don't even know what type of opening they would have filmed if that's not what they were
Hmm.
going to go for. But he told Stallone at the last minute, it's like, oh no, we're going to shoot the movie this way. We're going to open with a very tragic opening. And
Yeah.
but apparently Sylvester Stallone liked it enough that he's like, whoa, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great opening for a movie. Actually, I do have something where I guess there's a scene. There's like a big bridge between two rocks, and there's a scene where that falls, and Sylvester Stallone, and that he has to make it over to the other side. And I guess in the original cut of the movie, he jumps it. He jumps between the cliffs, and people
Oh
laughed in the test audience, and he was so embarrassed that that scene is cut out of the movies because it pretty much cuts from the bridge falls and he's climbing back up already.
yeah, because that's right. I do remember reading that now. It was a
Yeah,
40-foot jump. It would have
yeah,
been like he would have had to jump from one cliff that was 40 feet away. So it was just it would have been like him trying to, like, no, but they, like,
no,
people were just like, that's so stupid, and he had to take it out of the movie.
yeah. That I think that's pretty funny.
That was pretty good. But all in all, like I said, I had a pretty fun time watching it. It's
Mhm.
definitely, um, like you said, in that same realm of type of movie where it's just, is it a great movie? No, but is it me having a good time watching it? Yeah, you'll probably have a pretty good time watching it if you're a big action nut. So I say check it out.
Oh yeah, I recommend it. I think it's a good time. I think I actually had heard this movie was real. It was not really bad, but pretty bad. But I actually think it was a pretty fun action movie. So check it out if you want to have a good time.
But I think that's gonna do it for this week.
Mhm.
We're gonna continue our Stallone movie marathon next week on Tuesday with what, Nathan?
All right. On Tuesday, we are doing what is directly next in his filmography. I didn't realize we were doing three movies right in a row, and that's Demolition Man. Demolition Man is streaming over on Max.
Terrific! Can't wait! Can't wait to get more Stallone. But if you have any thoughts, opinions on Stallone or Cliffhanger, please email us over at drive-in-double-feature-podcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to post us at X at DIDF pod, and check out the Patreon at patreon.com/drive-in-double-feature-podcast. But until next time.
Until next time.